Good people of AdventureX, your attention please. Hello, hello, please take your seats and finish your conversations. Thank you very much. Please put your hands together. Join me in welcoming David Akinola, who is going to talk about creating Black British games. A round of applause, please.
Hello, hello, hi, how's everyone doing today? I am, thumbs up, okay. I am David. Before I introduce myself proper, I want to talk a bit about a little something called hyper-Americanization. Now, hyper-Americanization is, in my opinion, centralizing a lot of the Black experience around Black American identity. And there's a lot of reasons for this. One, it's very profitable. You know, America is quite big after all. And two, in my opinion, it homogenizes a lot of what the Black experience is and a lot of what the Black diaspora's experience is to, like, Black American ideas. And that's not to say that, you know, we don't have shared experiences, but more to communicate that if we want to communicate something specific to our culture that is rich and personal, we need to be more specific and tangible. Now, I'm a big Ace Attorney fan, big Professor Layton fan. I'm not sure if anyone's a big fan of Ace Attorney. I love Ace Attorney. But sometimes I find that when depicting London, it's very hyper-simplified, right? You know, let's be very honest. It's always like a character walking in on screen, it's like, governor, and I'm like, oh, that's not... like, I don't know anyone who talks like this, do you know what I mean? I don't even think I know white people that talk like this, do you know what I mean? And so it could be very interesting situation, not only in depicting Blackness, but, you know, Black British identity, because, you know, it's depicting London from an outsider looking in perspective. And we need to start depicting London and our experiences from an insider looking out, is that what I'd say? No. But like, from the perspective of someone residing in London. And so that's kind of what I want to do. So I'm just going to be showing some artwork. This is from NIXIE, it's very nice. But again, this is why I eventually went on to make NIXIE, which is a Black British video game with a Black woman as a main character. And the idea is to kind of share some of that experience. And so what I want to do with this talk today is kind of talk you through some of my experience making NIXIE, but also use that as a vehicle to discuss how creating Black British games is not only difficult, but, you know, how to get creative in that process. Because it's a very difficult thing, and I think it'll be interesting to talk about. So first of all, I'm going to say, look at what's around you. Look at your environment. Look at your surroundings to build said level design. So one of the mechanics I really wanted, I'm like really big into skateboarding, hoverboarding, big fan of a game called Sonic Riders, Tony Hawk, what have you, like pro skater. So I remember I was looking at the Southeastern line and the Jubilee line, I'm like, it takes so long for these things to come, they're always delayed. Like, has anybody had like their train be delayed before? Exactly, right? And so I got frustrated with it, and I said, okay, I want my character to jump on their hoverboard and say, forget waiting for the train, I'm just gonna ride through, right? And so that's a way of taking a personal experience and going, we're gonna transform that into a level. We're gonna make that into a game mechanic. And that's something that's really interesting to do. And a lot of what I'm gonna be showing off here is kind of how you can take your experiences and flip it into interesting game mechanics, right? You can see a little bit more of how we've depicted the Southeastern line. Pixel artist is great, their name is Ms., great stuff. But yeah, so this was just a really important thing. I remember my fiance, she was complaining a lot about the Southeastern line, and I was like, okay, we're gonna depict that. Who here knows someone, and this is don't feel free to answer honestly or not, who here knows someone that's bumped train before? Ooh, scary, okay. Well, okay. I know a lot of people that have done this, right? And usually this is done by going through the barricades. So I said, okay, let's make a game mechanic around that. Let's do that, okay? And so it's taking these tangible real-life experiences and going, how can we translate that into something that's fun and people can recognize and look at and go, oh, people do that, right? This is something that I live around and I do see, and that's kind of what I'm kind of getting at here. So again, you see more of like the mechanics, some artwork of the main character, turn like the train line into ramps, make them do tricks off the ramps, all this sort of stuff. So get really creative with it. More artwork. I'll explain more about the hoverboard and why it's just like a red triangle in a second. But again, feeding off that point, if you look at the background, and it's a bit hard to tell, this is actually Deptford High Street. And I used to always get my haircut at Deptford High Street. And I was like, okay, how can I, again, flip this? One of my frustrations with my barber in Deptford High Street is that for years now, he keeps bringing my hairline back. No, let's call a spade, right? And so I said, okay, I'm going to make him a supervillain in my game. Because I'm sick and tired of this, right? And that's taking tangible experiences and going, cool, let's flip that into a game mechanic, right? Let's flip that, you know? I know that, I'm not sure if anyone here like buys plantain, but like plantain, prices keep going up. So I'm like, okay, cool, let's make a side quest around that, about that, the fact that plantain prices keep rising. So stuff like that, get creative. This is, some of this was depicted earlier, so this is actually supposed to be the shard. And one of the ideas I had was having the main character use their hoverboard to skate all the way up the shard to make it to the top, and having that be a concept for a level. Now, this isn't like an incredibly unique and creative idea, but oftentimes when I'm playing games, it's like, we got to depict New York City, Brooklyn, Chicago, or what's it called? It'll be Shibuya. Who here has played Persona? Anyone? Yeah, I see the Persona fans, exactly. So like, Shibuya was a really common one. So I'm like, why isn't there a game where you scale up the shard? It's looking around you and almost trying to find the level design in your experiences, trying to find the level design in the things around you. And so that's a really big part of it for me. Another key part is listening to what's around you. I want to talk a little bit about, getting voice actors and the difficulty involved with that, right? So a little while ago, I believe this was in May, I put out a casting call and I said, hey, I need Black British voice actors. And would you believe, I got some Black British voice actors, but I got a lot of Black American people like doing auditions and going, look, I can put on a pretty good British accent, I think, and I'll listen to the demo, I'll listen to the audition, it'll be like, hi, hello, governor, and I'm like, no, you're like, you messed it up again, like, you know what I mean? And there's a way that we speak, again, so MLE, Multicultural London English, right? It's like a mix of Caribbean patois and, African slang. So terms like wagwan, mandem, fam, no allow, like all this stuff, right? It's, it's cultural and it's culturally tied. And that's the difference. It's like, if I was making a Black American product, I would use AAVE. I would say, I don't even want to say terms like this. I'd say y'all, I'd say finna, but I don't speak like that. I say you, man. You know what I mean? And so it's taking stuff like that and using it to create your experiences. I'm going to show a little bit of a clip. I'm not sure how well this is going to work. That's Neku. Anyway, I love the What Ends With You, as you can tell. I love this game. But I'm going to show some footage to kind of give you a sense for kind of how this works. This is Little Sims. And so, like, the dialogue, again, in this game, right? Just trying to write the way I see people, the way I see people talk, etc. And yeah, the music in the background that you're actually hearing was a song, I didn't mean to do that, but like the music in the background you were hearing back then was a song that I actually commissioned from someone called Esther, and they're an incredible artist, but it's about taking sound that you hear. So afro beats, bashment, grime, drill, I don't hear this in games. So again, taking what is effectively unique to us, what do we do that's very unique, and how can you translate that into a gaming experience? Again, is this going to the next slide? Okay. Again, so I've framed this once again. So be grounded and be very creative, right? A big thing, I'm not sure if anyone's on Earth, I've heard someone like shout out to this, but like The World Ends With You is one of my favorite games of all time. So I took a lot of visual inspiration from The World Ends With You. So I wanted the cutscenes to look like comic book and manga scenes, and it was really interesting to me. A lot of the visual design, the UI design, is inspired by constructivism, which was a 1920s artistic movement. And it's very left-leaning, and I'm someone I like to believe is very left-leaning. So I wanted to use that in the UI design. And as you can see, I translated that even into the skateboard that the main character, Fiona, that's her name, uses throughout the game. And so it's taking these things and getting really creative with it. It's not even just enough to go, I'm going to depict Deptford High Street, or I'm going to depict Tower Bridge, or I'm going to depict the Southeastern Line, or the Jubilee Line. It's going, okay, how do I do this creatively? Have I seen anyone make pixel art around this? No, not really. So why don't we follow through with more of that? And you can see in the menus and the menu design how I kind of wanted this to look. And keep going through. The loading screens. Has anyone heard of the Boondocks? Yeah, I love Boondocks. So I took some inspiration from the Boondocks and the comic strips that they write, and I used that for the loading screens, right? And it's taking these little things to really stylize your game and give your game some character, and give it some synergy. It all follows through. Some of the concept art. So again, tying back into the Black British roots. A lot of us are very closely tied to our roots, be it Nigerian, Ghanaian, like Sierra Leone, Caribbean, from Jamaica, it doesn't matter, right? And so I based the enemy designs of mythological African creatures because I was like, I've never seen this done before. Why don't we do that? So we got concept art made of were hyenas and like this firefly demon thing called a Des. And so you can see some of the pixel art here of how we ended up translating it, right? There's going to be a bit more pixel art on the next few slides, so be very mindful. But yeah, so stuff like this was just really important for me. It's taking those tangible things, of course, still doing research into these things to making sure you're doing it correctly, but thinking, what's unique to my experience that I can depict right now? Because I think it's very often that we can get caught up in because fantasy is very important. I love fantasy, I love being creative. But sometimes it's also just looking around and seeing what's around you and using that. I didn't get to bring this up in terms of voice actors just a bit earlier, but also I noticed that when I did eventually get the voice actors, it's very hard to get Black British roles. It's really hard because most of the roles hiring Black people are for Black Americans. So in that sense, in creating more creative projects like this, you're creating work for these people. You are creating tangible projects that they can represent and be themselves with. And one of my favorite parts about the voice directing process with all of them was that they injected themselves into it. They were like, no, I've got an idea. I know how this line can be a bit better. And I loved it because it feels authentic. It feels real. And the biggest thing I can tell you to be is be authentic in what you're doing. And this is just some, again, pixel art. I just basically slapped a sprite sheet on here, I'm not gonna lie. And it should give you a sense for kind of how we wanted to depict the hoverboard. We wanted to make sure all of the attacks kind of, flowed correctly while riding on the hoverboard. Really fun stuff. And you can see some of the animations to the right? Yeah, to the right over here. There's some descriptions of what the game is about up there, if you want to read it. But once again, it's about trying to find the right way to translate all of this stuff, trying to find the right way to communicate this in a stylized way. Because, again, for me, it wasn't enough to just go, I want to depict London, or I want to depict what the Black British experience is like in London. It's also me going, I want it to look cool. I want it to feel cool. I want people to look at the animations and go, wow, like he really stylized it. He really did something with this. So, yeah. And this is some of the artwork. Again, I've never seen characters, let alone, not even Black characters, but Black British characters, depicted like this, again, or in this style. So it's, again, going back to this point of how can I stylize this? How can I make this my own while still making it my own environment, making it things I've seen tangibly? And these are, again, more animations, effectively, to give you a sense for just how long some of this process is. So it's mapping out, like, the body parts, it's taking references from games like, one of my favorites was Streets of Rage, River City Girls, taking inspiration from these games and going, how can we translate this? How do we because it's a game very focused on moving forward, right? You're riding the hoverboard forward. How do we make these attacks, work while she's still in motion? It's a very big important part for me during this whole process. This is more just cutscene art. Once again, said I was very inspired by the World Ends With You, as you can see by the artwork. So I don't want to like bore you with too many of the details unless we have questions after. But yeah, and the final point that I really truthfully want to make is just, again, be very true to yourself. Be creative, but recognize that the most unique thing that you can do is be yourself. Depict your own reality. Because I would like to believe, and I don't know, right? I'm asking, and maybe it's rhetorical, maybe it's not, that I haven't seen a game like this before. And it's because I don't think many people are depicting Black Britain. Or there's not many people doing it, or there's not many people in the mainstream, I guess, right? And so, to me, that's part of what gives this game a unique appeal. And so, again, taking what's tangible and working with that. Thank you guys so much for your time. I mean so much to me. If you want to follow NIXIE, the link is over there. And if you have any questions, if there is time for questions, feel free to speak up and put your hand up. So yeah, la-di-da. Microphone will be handed to you, so.
Love the game, the artwork, everything looks amazing. My question is, do you get pushback from publishers when you want to be very original and focus, for example, on Black experience in Britain, and then the publisher goes, well, that's great, but I'm not going to be able to push that in the Americas or Japan and stuff like that?
Okay, so to answer that question, so I'm not going to publishers. Fun fact, this game was actually a game that had to kickstart, right? And I used some of my social platform influence to kind of push the Kickstarter. So I'll say that to say there probably is a lot of pushback, and I have tried to pitch this game to publishers, but alas, right, it's the British experience, Black British experience, no one's really that interested in it. So it's about creating something unique. In fact, I have another question, and I'm sure most people have seen it. Who here has seen Spider-Verse? Ah, there you go, we love it. Do you know what I mean? All right, so who here knows about Hobie? Exactly, Hobie was a really big deal. I'm not sure if anyone saw him online, but like, everyone was making such a big deal about him. It's like, oh, he's so cool, he's so unique. I'm just like, just a Black British guy. Do you know what I mean? I was just saying, he's just a Black British guy. But he's like, oh, and like, everyone's trying to do his voice, like, oh, man, government, this, that. Again, like, they're still trying to do the voice. But again, it goes back to that point where it feels unique because we don't usually see it. So I think, first of all, I think there will be an increase in Black British media soon and shortly. But you know, it goes back to that. I look at the success of Hobie, a character like that, and I go, well, the reason he feels so unique is because of that. So I say that to say it's hard, but you know, it will get better.
Excellent, thank you.
No worries. There's a question in the back. I like this. I like the enthusiasm, no? Good energy.
Thanks. Right, so you've got so many different styles between all the different parts of that, the UI and the gameplay and that sort of thing. How do you decide when you're going to pivot to a different style here? How do you make that decision?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of the question. Sorry?
Yeah, how do you make that decision?
How do I make the decision? For me, I mean, the main primary styles I would say is constructivism and kind of diving into like the World Ends With You inspiration, I think. I tried to use, the main basis was the constructivist style because I was like, okay, this works for me, this works for me, this works for me. But I guess it depends what you mean. In terms of, I look at this and I go, this is the cutscene art, right? So these are artworks specifically for the cutscenes, as you saw before. I look at this and I go, this is the artwork for the gameplay. We're just playing games here, right, effectively. And this is just key promotional art. I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to Ace Attorney, just my go-to example. Ace Attorney has the pixel art sprites that you see during like the testimonies, and then you have the key art that you rarely ever see during the game. So when you see this artwork, it's just the key art. When you see this artwork, it's just the gameplay artwork. And when you see this artwork, it's the story art. I hope that makes more sense in terms of the style, or are you talking more the UI?
No, I think that sort of makes sense. I mean, I was also thinking about the fact that you talked about the loading screens being a quite different thing, so maybe I'm just overfitting a pattern.
All right, sounds good. All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions? Oh, okay, we got a few questions back there. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time, but hopefully.
We've got time for a couple more. I'll say it into the microphone this time.
Sounds good,
Where
sounds
was
good.
that hand?
Hi, I really love the talk. I really love this game. I think it's sick. As a North Londoner, I absolutely love this. My question is, with looking at the real world about London, about the characters, obviously, you know, London is such a diverse place, so many people from so many backgrounds. We're sort of thinking about intersectionality of like different cultures, about people coming from different parts of the world. You do any sort of like research and sort of consultancy on that? How do you sort of think about how to sort of frame sort of the culture within London, I guess?
I think the big thing is talking to a bunch of people. I think that's like the key thing. And I mean, not just talking to like fellow game devs. I mean like just listening to people speak. It's like, okay, I didn't even bring up this example. Some people say hair instead of here. It's stuff like that that goes into like, okay, for the voice direction, instead of saying here, say hair, because that's what some people actually do say. And like, it's listening to people speak. It's kind of engaging with different types of people and going to different spaces. And that's kind of generally how I do my research. Sometimes I do ask around, obviously, but generally, it's just about having a diverse pool around you and engaging with them, I'll say. There's a question over there.
Oh, I'll send that to you.
Thank you. I love this game so much. I loved this talk, and you can really see the World Ends With You inspirations in it.
Love it.
Yeah. The characters as well, like the character roster is gorgeous. Would it be possible to maybe talk about Fiona or any of the characters maybe a little bit further, like their, I don't know, their aspirations or anyway?
Okay. I don't want to say too much because obviously it's like a very story-driven game, but I will say that Fiona finds a way to enter the spiritual realm, which is basically just like the underground from the World Ends With You, effectively. Right? And she finds that, and she can read into people's minds. And so she's going through her own issues at this moment. Think Neku again. So like, she can read into people's minds, and she can enter them and fight the spirits inside people's minds, or fight the demons inside people's minds, to help them deal with their issues. So once she's kind of cleared people's heads, they can think rationally and make positive decisions. It's kind of like feeding off that. Have you ever heard someone say like, oh, you have bad energy, or you have good energy, or they give good vibes? It's that kind of vibe, where it's like, you kind of clear out the spirits, clear out the negativity in their head by fighting them off. And then you go really fast in the levels so they can catch wind of your ideas, and then obviously it clears their mind. Trey, I'll say the main character's names, but again, I can't go too much into detail. So the one in the green jacket, that's Fiona, that's the main character. The one in the yellow jacket, that is Matthias or Mike. Sometimes we just call him Mike. The one that looks like a Boondocks character, that's Trey. So the one with the Wu-Tang chain, that's Trey. And then the one on the far right, her name is Joanna, and she is Fiona's childhood friend. And so I can't go into all the details, sadly, because I don't want to spoil, but yeah, I'm really excited to kind of show off their stories and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's my answer. Okay. Do we have any more questions? All right, one more. These lights are very hot.
Hi. Okay. Hi. Yeah, obligatory game looks amazing. Like, it's so cool. I was wondering, because you mentioned you launched it on Kickstarter. How was building that community up, and what were like the reactions you got? Like, were there a lot of people saying, "Oh, I haven't seen this before," or yeah?
Yeah, it was a lot of, I haven't seen, it looks really cool, I haven't seen something like this before. I would say, because there's not even a lot of black people in games, I'll say it's just kind of a bit of a surprise whenever someone sees something. Because also, like, obviously when we're depicting black people, the first thing you think of isn't like a visual novel, do you know what I mean? Or it isn't like an RPG, for instance. And it's kind of also trying to find the unique genres in which black people aren't necessarily depicted, let alone, you know, the black British experience. I have a YouTube channel where I kind of talk about video games and like, you know, black issues and what have you. And so I would say it came in clutch in pertains to like getting the Kickstarter notice. So I had a lot of conversation around it already. I was kind of already building into it. So I think that was like beneficial for me in terms of building it. But I would say the reaction has been relatively positive, especially people over here. I think everyone I've shown the game idea is excited for it on the premise that it's just like, I don't get to see much stuff like this. So yeah, I'll say that. But yeah.
Thank you.
Ooh, we got one. Can we sneak in one more?
I think we can sneak in one more, yes.
There's one more. Because your hand went straight up. I was like, okay.
Hello.
Hey.
I just wanted to check with you. What's the reaction been outside of London, outside of America? You know, the normal places where you'd go for it.
Yeah.
What's the reaction been in Caribbean, in Africa? What's it been like?
I think, okay, I wouldn't be able to comment necessarily in the Caribbean or Africa, but I could comment on, like, I guess the older generation's perspective on it, who have maybe spent more time there. I think they find it interesting and unique. I think some of the talk of spirits is a bit scary, I'll say sometimes, and that's what comes with the trade. But also, it's a part of NIXIE, in my opinion. I wanted to kind of tackle the demonization of African spirituality generally. So it's like, that's kind of a part of it, like, that I wanted to depict too. So I'd say the reaction has been pretty much positive in that I haven't seen any of this before, but obviously any game depicting spirits is a bit, like, scary sometimes, which I understand. But yeah, I'd say that's the reaction.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Love what you're doing, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for your time. It's been great.